Welcome to our section on loops, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to my website. My name is Daryl, and this is Programming in Any Language. The website is www.blackdashduck.com. It's where you will find all my videos organized in logical order. And this is the loop section. The loop section is a series of short videos designed to give you the tools to have your programs do repetitive tasks, the things they do best. The first one I want you to look at is the while loop. It's a pretest loop. That means it checks a condition. If the condition is true, it executes a block of code. It's going to check that first. It does this repeatedly until the condition is false. When the condition is false, the block of code is no longer executed and the program continues down its normal path. Yeah, it's easy to say. This is something that's easier to understand if we actually see it in action, however. So let's do that. Let's take a look at a video.
Okay, let's talk about loops. I've got the slide up here, and let's just come forward on this thing. We're going to look at, the first thing we're going to look at is the list boxes first, because we're going to be using list boxes to demonstrate how loops work. Now, you've had some experience with list boxes before in the decision section. But if you've forgotten, look at the previous video, I think, and you'll see that we can review it. I also want to talk about here just very shortly that list box basically gets a control. There's various methods and properties that you can use in code to manipulate the list box's contents. It's going to hold a bunch of things. The items.add method allows you to add an item to the list box control. You simply give it a name, list box name, whatever you want to call it, .items.add, and then put the item in there, and that'll hold it in place. List box is the name of the list box control. Item is the value to be added to the item's property. You can also clear them. We're not going to do any clearing, I don't think, right now in this thing. But items.clear method, well, you can erase every item in there and start with a brand new, fresh list box. So, whatever, if you have an employee type list box shown here, items.clear will wipe it out, and you'll be starting all over again. The count property I wanted to mention here because the count property, list boxes always take care to remember how many items they actually have in their list box. You can interrogate the count property to find out how many there are there. We could use this to set the upper range of where we want to go in our loops. For example, if we have 10 items in our loop, we might want to use the count property to find out that we have 10 items. Then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, basically to find out how we've gotten there and be able to stop our loop at that point in time. So loops are important, and we'll use it. We'll use these things in our examples as we go forward. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the while loop. The while loop is one of three types of loops we're looking at. It's a pretest loop, and I'll explain that in a minute. The while loop causes a statement or a set of statements to repeat as long as a Boolean expression is true. So while something is true, it's going to go ahead and branch off from the if statement, basically, or decision, or the Boolean, and go off and execute these things and come back and cycle through there until this is false, and then it'll drop through and go forward. The while loop has two parts. It has the Boolean expression that is tested for a true or false value or statement in there. When it's false, you do continue on. The loop's done. The statement or set of statements that is repeated as long as the Boolean expression is true. So while this is true, you can have a block of statements that will do a certain thing for you over and over and over again. It's going to be easier to see. We'll actually do this kind of thing and get an idea what it's going to look like. The structure of the loop, while it looks like this, in C#, for example, the generic format is you got the while statement with the Boolean expression right up here. And you've got this block right in here where we're talking about the two braces showing where the statements can be placed. There can be one statement, it can be many statements. The first line is called the while clause, and statements inside the curly brace are the body of the loop. This is where all the action takes place. When a while loop executes, the Boolean expression is tested. If true, the statements are executed. Each time the loop executes its statements, we say the loop is iterating or performing an iteration. So that's just a term that's been used. I can't think of when I ever actually used it in programming, but when I talk about it, I might use the word iteration because it means counting through or going through the process. Looping is probably a better term for that. Here's some sample code. We've got a go button sitting right here. You can think of it as just a regular click event. So we'll click on it. And the first thing it's going to do, it's going to set this count variable, this integer, to 1. And then while the count is less than or equal to 5, where it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to go ahead and display this message box. So it'll say hello. Then count gets incremented here, so it becomes a 2. And we go back up, and is it less than 5 or less than or equal to 5? Yes, it is, a 2. So the message box will show hello again. Increment again to a 3. It's less than 5. Yes, it is. It'll continue to go through this process until finally the count is equal to 6. Say, we'll go up here and is it less than or equal to 5? No, it's not. It'll come out, the loop is done, and it goes on and does whatever other code is following this kind of thing. So the counter has an initial value of 1 in this case. We could set it to 0, we could set it to 5 and start somewhere else in the loop. Each time the loop executes, 1 is added to the counter. That's this line right here. That's doing that work. The Boolean expression will test whether the counter is less than or equal to 5. So the loop will stop when that counter equals 5. Less than or equal to 5. Well, no, it'll actually count when it goes above 5, the way it's written here, less than or equal to 5. So this statement is not exactly true, because it'll continue. When it's less than or equal to 5, it will go forward. If we didn't have the equal sign here and said less than 5, then it would stop when it hit 5. So a little tricky. And in fact, that's probably a good example to say, because that's where people make a lot of program mistakes. Is they'll look at this less than or equal sign, it'll get there. The loop works very well until you get to that last one. That's where the errors pop out. The first item you're reading or the last item you're reading is generally where you're going to see all the errors. So the while loop is a pretest loop. That means a while loop tests its condition before performing iteration. You can literally have a false occurrence there, and it won't do any of the code, because it does the test first. And if the test is false, it'll drop past the loop and go on to whatever processing it had to do. It's necessary to declare a counter variable with the initial value, with an initial value. It does not be 1. It can be anything you want. It can be some other number, and I'll show that to you. So the while clause can test its Boolean expression while count is less than 5. Do this bracket here. We're actually doing see the equal sign. It's just less than 5. Inside the curly braces, there must exist a statement that increments or decrements the counters. You want that counter piece in here. Down the road, I'm going to show you some examples where a different statement can be used instead. But for now, think of it as a counter variable that's going to be iterating our loop. Infinite loops are the things you need to worry about. It can happen. It's a mistake you'll make as a programmer. And I still make that mistake on occasion. You'll forget to put in a statement line, and the loop continues forever, whether ending. An infinite loop is a loop that will repeat until the program is interrupted. There are a few conditions that could cause a while loop to be an infinite loop. The typical scenario is that the programmer forgets to write code that makes the test the condition for false. In this example here, the counter is never increased, so the Boolean expression is never false. We set the int value to the count to 1. And while the count is less than or equal to 5, we're going to do a message box show hello. Goes back. Is it less than 5? Yes, it is. Still 1. Does it again. It's less than 5? Yes, it's still 1. There's nothing incrementing that counter to make it go above 5. So this one thing will go on forever and simply not end. Let's jump in and create a brand new project. I want to pick out the dot frames network. We do next on this thing. And I'm going to call this thing, I'm going to call this my loop examples. And I'm going to do this because I want to actually use the same form and program to show not only the while loop, but the for loop and the do while loop. We'll just look at the while loop for now, and we'll add some code later on, another video, to actually put all this stuff in place. So we'll call it the loop example. I'm going to go ahead and park it in my, I got a sandbox set up somewhere out here. Let's go to right in my loops here. The while loop. Here's my sandbox. Let's go ahead and select that folder and go ahead and create this particular program. Okay, we've got this thing in place now. Okay, we've got it in place. We've got all our stuff here. I want to add my toolbox to it, so I'm going to view my toolbox. Make sure that's on here so I can grab my tools that I want to use to build this thing. And we're going to use the common controls. Probably I won't use anything much different than that, so we'll leave that kind of sit right there. And what I want to do is I want to take this form here, and I want to basically I want to set up a couple things I want to show you. We want to have a variable. We want to have a counter variable so we can see what our counter is at any given time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put some labels up here. This is one label that's going to be going up here, and we're just going to call this guy counter. COUNTER. Pop it up there like that. And let's make it bold. One thing I like to do is kind of make things so we can see them. So my font is going to become bold, and we're going to create it at, let's go ahead and set it to maybe a 10 in size. That looks a little better. I think we're actually seeing that thing. We're also going to put another label up here. This is going to hold the counter for us. So what we'll do is we will go ahead and we'll call it LBL counter. So I can actually put the value in here. I'm going to take auto size off of it, and I'm going to give it a border style, a fixed single, just so it's there. And I'm going to kind of line it up by hand here underneath this guy here. I also want to change my font on this thing, so it too is going to be a bold and a 10. And since I've got that in place now, in fact we can even center it. We'll do that down here where we've got the value showing up. Oops. Our text alignment, we're going to go ahead and set that thing up so it's actually in the middle of my form right there. And we'll get rid of the label 2 because we don't need to see that anymore. We're actually going to see a counter in there. So we'll just pull that out of there. So everybody got our little label up there. That's great. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a list box. So we want to set up a list box right here. Grab that list box and put it in the center of the, or put it on the side of the screen over here, and make it big enough so we can kind of see what we've got in there. And we're gonna call it. We're gonna name it list box LBX original. This will be our original stuff in here. And we're going to populate it with a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to go down here and, well, actually we also want to change the font on this thing so we can see it real easy. Make it bold, and we'll make it 10 like everything else. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually populate this thing with data so we can pull it in there. So instead of going in and writing a program that's going to add these things, I'm going to do this by hand and actually pop that in there. And here we go to our items collection right here and go in there, and it's going to open up a small box. And inside here I can type in a bunch of things. I'm going to put in Taz, and I'm going to put in Daffy, and I'm going to put in Sylvester, and I'm going to put in Bugs, and I'm going to put in Petunia, and Porky, and Elmer. And who else we got out there? Tweety. Let's see, Yosemite Sam. Can't forget about him. We got anybody else? Sylvester the Cat. We got Daffy Duck. Kind of think of the other cartoon character. Oh, Foghorn Leghorn. Foghorn. We got Henry Hawk. And so on the lines. We got a bunch of things in here. Probably good enough. We'll save that. Put that number in there, and they're going to appear in here as you can see. Now we have a little, it's going to show some of those, something you're going to miss a few, but we've got a scroll bar on the side which is going to have that in there. So this is going to be our collection text in. We're actually calling it original. Now we're going to set up another list box. And it's going to be exactly the same size as the other. We're going to call this one LBX out. And we're going to make it the same size. Hold this thing down, hold this one down, and we'll do a format on the thing, make same size, both. That looks good right there. That's looking just fine. Okay, so we've got a list box right here. I also want to make the same font. What I should have done was copied it and deleted all the stuff that was in there. But you know, that's what happens. And make it bold and make it a 10. So we've got that in there like this. Okay, so that's great. That's it. So that's all we really need. We're going to create we want to get an exit button in here. So I'm going to go to the buttons and pop that over here. And we'll call this the exit button. We'll call it BTN EXIT. Again, I use Hungarian notation. Works very well for me. You could use camel casing, whatever you'd like. Exit is what we're going to call this, and we're going to set the font on this thing to bold and 10. And there we go. And make it a little bit larger so we can see that in there. That's good. Okay, great. Not sure if I'm going to be trimming this thing down. I may be trimming it down a little bit, so I might want to put this thing like over here and then bring this form over a little bit so we don't have it. Now what I want to do is I want to put another button in here, which is going to do our execution. So I'm doing a Control C and a Control V and pop this thing over here, and we're going to call this guy while. We're going to call button while. This will be our while loop, and we'll give it a name of while. And that's all we need to actually put this form together. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and take some items in here and populate them in here by using a while loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my code right now. Let's go ahead and save what we've got so far. So we've got it here. And then I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and create the exit button right away. Put the code in for that. Need that capital in there. There we go. And that's going to take care of that for us. So we've got that close button in there. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create my while loop. I've named it while, so we're going to get a button button while is going to be popping up here with our code in here. And what I need to do is I need to do a couple things to make this actually work. So I'm going to go double click on this, and we've got our button while event here. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to set up a counter variable that I'm going to use. I'm going to put that up in the global area up here. So up in this area, I'm just going to say in the public class, oops, wrong spot, right down in here, so that all the other events can see this. We're going to call this int. I'm going to call it int counter. So I'm going to create an integer that is going to keep track of what we're actually using here. So this will be our counter variable. That's all I really need. Now I'm going to go down to my code here, and I want to set that counter to int counter is equal to 0. And I'm just going to say here set initial value. Then we're going to set up our while loop. So we're going to say while, and I'm going to say int counter is less than 5. And now I'm going to set up my braces to go ahead and set up my block of what I want it to actually do. What I want it to do is I want it to increment the counter. Int counter is equal to int counter plus 1. And then I'm going to set up my my text box, my LBX. Oops, I got to put a check semicolon here. I'm going to say LBX out dot items. Oops. Items dot add, and I'm going to say LBX original dot selected item to string and end it. And that's going to be enough to go ahead and oops, I forgot one other thing. I need to actually first I need the LBX stuff dot selected index is equal to in counter. I've got to tell it that what I'm actually looking at, LBX stuff, not actually LBX original. There. I need to look at the whatever. I'm saying that what I want to say here is I want to take my counter, whatever it happens to be, and have it create the index for LBX original, so it's looking at an item here. And then when I get that, I'll be able to actually go ahead and get the selected item, because I'll actually have it selected at that point in time. Now you're looking at something kind of funny here. We're setting our counter up to 0. We're incrementing by 1, so I'm really looking at item number 1, which is really the second item in our list box. And we'll play with this and change this in a bit. But this is all I need to do. So it's going to only grab 5 guys. So let's go ahead and do a save on this. And let's do a run on it. Do a start. Program comes up. It's right here like this. So what we're seeing here is we have our while loop. We have our people here, and we're going to go and grab some and put it down here. We're going to probably grab 5 things. So I hit while here, and bang! What it did, it went through there. It grabbed Daffy, Sylvester, Bugs, and Petunia, and Porky, and put them in the lower piece down here by adding it. Simply using the add to put it in here. But notice it missed Taz. Well, I didn't even spell right. I got tax up there. Why was that? Well, if we take a look at our code, we can see that we set up the initial counter to be 0, but we put our incrementer right here. So let's do something a little different. Let's take that int and get rid of it here and move it down here, where we're actually putting it after we've actually done the selection. So we increment the counter after we've done our operation on this thing. We'll get this out of here. And now we'll do a file save. And we'll do a start. We have the while loop here. Hit while, and now it gets the first one and goes through. So that it's important where you place that incrementer. I did it after we actually did the first move. So the while statement did its first block of code, incremented the counter, went back and did it, and we still got 5 items, as you can see, but it's different from the first one we got is a different one that we've actually gotten here. Now we could actually populate this counter real quickly by showing us that thing here. So what we can do is we can actually maybe take this LBL counter.text and make it equal to our int counter. To string. That way it'll populate that and we'll actually see it there. So we'll have something there. I also want something a little different too. I'm going to actually increment this. I'm going to start this counter at a 3, because you don't have to start it at 0. You can start it at something totally different. It's still going to give us a counter where we actually are. So let's go ahead and do a file save and do a start. We'll run this again. Now remember, we're starting at a 3 here. So we're going to go ahead and do a while. Hit bang. We started at the 3rd item, but we ended when it got to 5. So what happened was we had 3 here. We went ahead and started processing at 0, 1, 2, 3. Bugs it's the 4th item in the list, but 0, 1, 2, 3. It's actually we start with 0 in list boxes. So 0, 1, 2, 3 is really the 4th item in there. So grab Bugs, move them down here, incremented the counter to a 4, put in Petunia, incremented the counter to a 5, and then determine that it's too much. We reached 5. That's all I want to get in here. So all we got is a starting piece here. If I wanted to get something different, I'd need to go further on this thing. So our starting position right here, and where we're actually getting, it's while it's grabbing, it's incrementing, and finally dying when it gets to the end there. So that's what's happening at this thing. So that's how you control this. That's how you make this all work. It's fairly simple, fairly straightforward, but this is the while loop. And we're going to use the same set of blocks here to show you how the for loop and the do while loop can be used as well. Hit the exit sign here, close out. The other thing you might want to see is what happens if we comment out the incrementing piece here. So it's sitting here at 3 and we never get to 5. If we do that, we've got our infinite loop. And we start that thing, program's ready to go, but it's not going to end. It's going to continue forever. While it starts at bugs and stays there and continues. You can't get out of this thing. You can't even hit the exit button at all. It basically goes on. You've got to go up here. But if this happens to you, the only way to get out of here is to go up to your debug and stop it. Stop debugging. And then the program will come back to you. So you can get into it. Then you can, oh, that's what I did. I screwed up this and didn't put this piece in here to get that back in here and make that real and make it happen. I do want to keep that code straight. So that's what while loop looks like. Fairly straightforward.
Okay, that was a bit long, primarily because we needed to cover the list box since we use it with all the loop demonstrations. But that's just it. We covered the list box, so consider it covered in the next couple of videos. What you should understand here with this loop type is that it runs for as long as the condition is true. There is no predetermined number of times set. The while loop consists of a condition. You specify the condition to be evaluated before each iteration. If true, the loop continues. If false, it terminates. That also means that it could terminate before executing any code. Block of code. This consists of what should happen if the condition is true. It's what you'll execute. It's the block of code, what you want it to do. For now, what you should take out of this video is, this is a pretest loop. There's two parts, the condition and the statement or statements to execute. In the next video, we'll examine the for loop. But that's next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to use the website for easy access to all my videos. It'll really help. If you get a chance, please subscribe. That way you'll be notified when something new is available. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.